Hey guys, welcome back to the shop, and today we're doing another episode with Suzy, only because it's kind of needed. I'll be linking the short video I did, just waiting for the dogs to stop barking. Usually a pretty quiet neighborhood. I'll be linking the short video I just did yesterday on what just happened to her, and I'm not happy. That sounds horrible. I'm not gonna slap her. I'm still happy with her. But she's not happy because she's puking antifreeze all over the place. The coolinator, aka radiator, has started leaking. I don't know why I'm trying to act like Vice Grip Garage, because I'm not that guy. Cool guy. I can't be as cool as him. So let's just get wrenching. I got a bunch of containers here, including Barbie's pool, to try and collect all of that coolant. I'm going to try and reuse it because not too long ago I replaced the water pump with a brand new one. So it'd be nice to, reduce, reuse, and recycle. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to gain access to our radiator hoses, and we're just slowly going to try and drip it out the bottom. Some radiators will have an actual petcock that will open and you can drain out the radiator. I have to crawl underneath to see if this one has it or not. If it does, that's going to be awesome. We can actually kind of like mitigate the amount of mess we're going to make. Otherwise, you're basically just pulling the lower rad hose and you're hoping for the best. So let's crawl underneath and see what we got. Well, look at that. This radiator does in fact have a drain valve. It's right here. The unfortunate part is that it is completely rusted away, seized, nothing's happening. So we're going to have to resort to the good old mess-a-rooney that I'm going to do by lowering the rad hose, or using the lower rad hose. So I'm going to just set up my containers down below here and try and take my time and not make much of a mess. Alright, hopefully I've got that camera angled just right, because I don't want to get it too close to all of this coolant that I'm about to make a mess with. So we're going to disconnect or loosen off this. Oh, look at that. We've already got some water coming out of it, and that's okay. I can take this at this rate. Now, something else we have to contend with is the transmission oil lines as well, because there's a cooler built into the radiator to do both the engine coolant and the transmission oil. So that's another one we got to play with, and hopefully again not make too much of a mess there. And then we'll have to top off the transmission when we're all done this job. How awesome is that? Okay, so while that's slowly trickling down below, we can attend to whatever's on top here. So we need to remove this fan shroud and just kind of shove it in against the fan so that it allows the radiator to slide out. So a couple of 3/8 sockets. A couple of 3/8 bolts holding 4 corners here. Oh, looks like I lied about that. There's only 2 bolts holding the shroud on, and there's just kind of tabs in the bottom. So that's kind of cool. So we're going to need to remove the top radiator hose, and there should be no liquid in this hose anymore since it's been dripping for the last couple minutes. Whew, I'm happy I was right on that one. That could have been sketchy. And that looks like it'll give us enough room to do what we're doing. Then we just have to deal with these weird fasteners, but they're actually they're not weird, they're just 12 point. And what you need is a 7/16 12 point. Fits on there just perfectly. And you can remove the brackets holding the top radiator. And the brackets just come off like that. They got a couple of, and I did loosen this cap off so that we can get some air, drain it quicker. That just goes conveniently. Now our radiator is loose. Only have a couple more hoses to deal with, so we have one hose for the heater core at the top. Then using my trusty Leatherman here, not sponsored, but I do have a Leatherman. I carry it with me everywhere I go. I'd probably take this thing out honestly 5 to 6 times a day on random stuff, even not even mechanical. I love this thing. So I'm going to use the pliers now to just undo the clip. I've been meaning to get myself another one because this one's starting to get a little bit older, but guys, look them up. They're really good. They're awesome. I do everything with these things. Got your knife, super sharp. Got a screwdriver at the other end, little clip. Awesome. Okay, so other than our lower rad hose and the transmission cooler, we're done. So this one here also has an added transmission cooler in the front of the radiator. I'll show you when I pull it out. Just a little guy, but it helps because when you got this much weight going down the road, anything to keep that transmission oil cool is helpful. So what they've done is they've kind of MacGyvered and rerouted so the oil pressure or the oil return comes from the transmission to the cooler, goes through the cooler like the radiator, and then comes out of the radiator into the cooler and then goes back to the transmission. So it goes through 2 cooling cycles before it makes its way back, which is ideal really. So we just have to wait for the coolant to be completely drained out before we start disconnecting other stuff, and then we're just going to deal with these 2 transmission cooler lines. Alright, well, it seems to have stopped trickling. I was able to crawl underneath there again and actually remove the lower rad hose. Nothing left in the system at all. So it's going to drip a little bit into the container for the next few minutes, but I think we can reach the top, or we can reach that transmission cooler hose from the top. I'm just going to grab my light and just kind of do that right now. Now with any luck, this should come straight out. Other than, oh, you know what, I have to undo this line too. This is the other end of that transmission cooler. I need to undo this, and then the cooler will stay with the radiator. Yeah, one more hose here. Okay, now that goes with it, and a little bit more dripping out right into the container. Should come straight up. Alright, just a very tight fit here, and it's actually quite heavy. Normally radiators are not, but this one must be made of copper and it's reinforced with a lot of steel. So oh, there it is. Wow. And this is our transmission cooler I was talking about. I'm gonna have to plug up these lines. I'm gonna remove this so that we can put it back on after we get it repaired. But I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to try and bring it to a shop because I think that might be a little bit less expensive. So right there you can see, guys, if I zoom out a little bit, it's the very first run of coolant at the top. And just age did its time and it corroded it. Now it could also be a stone, because sometimes that can happen. It goes through the radiator. You pick up a stone, punctures the radiator, but that looks more like rust around that to me, if I can stop shaking. Okay, so let's send this into the shop, see what they have to tell us. Alright guys, a couple days later, we have a new radiator. So we're going to get into that right now because there are subtle differences. However, the first thing I did is I brought this old one. This is my transmission cooler. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'll put this over here. But I brought this into a radiator shop to see what it would cost to simply just add a new core using the old tanks, because they can do that. The reason why it was so heavy pulling it out, found out that this core happens to be copper. Now there's a huge debate, goes on forever and ever, about what's better? Is it a copper core or aluminum core? Which one does better heat transfer? Honestly, I don't think anyone's ever answered it correctly, or even if it really matters. But longevity or durability, I would say copper core is better. They're more solid, better built. Clearly, the weight has something to do with that. Now, in order for me to get a new copper core of the same size, same thickness, all that good stuff, I was quoted $800. Now, this is Canadian money though, and I got this new radiator in a day for $285 plus tax. So it was really hard to remanufacture or recore a 47-year-old radiator that might still leak through, you know, places like this. So I just decided to go with a new one. If I get a couple years out of it, that's fine with me. We are considering upgrading Suzy shortly anyways. Couple things I don't like. Well, it's plastic tanks. You do get what you pay for. And the biggest difference is right here. These two holes are for your transmission cooler. So inside this transmission, or sorry, inside both radiators, it's easier to see in the old one. There is, oh, my light's a little bit too bright for that. Let me dial it down here. Right there, there is a cooler. So it sits in the fluid, and believe it or not, even at 104 or 5 degrees Celsius operating temperature for the average cooler or radiator on these engines, that fluid still gets cooled by the coolant or the antifreeze. Which is why, going back to the air-to-air or the oil-to-air cooler, this is an added transmission cooler. So the way it was plumbed in before, coolant or transmission oil came through the transmission, went through the oil cooler, got cooled off by the radiator, and then went through these lines and got cooled off by the air one more time before going back to the transmission. They're different. I cannot plumb this the way it was. So I've opted to just eliminate that part altogether. Talking with the transmission guy, or again, I keep saying transmission, I'm not sure why. Talking with the radiator guy, these are common failure points. That cooler inside tends to crack under pressure, and then it starts to leak transmission oil into your radiator, and it starts to look like Pepto-Bismol. Not cool. Not something I want in our old rig. So we're just going to use this. And I think with this amount of surface area, we're going to be fine. We're going to mount this directly to the grill. It was mounted directly to the radiator. However, he also said that that's not a good idea because that could cause vibration issues and failure points because of the chafing against the two parts, right? So let's go mount this in the front of the radiator, or in the grill, I should say. I'm probably still going to be using tie wraps, or I'm not sure yet, but most likely tie wraps because they just seem to work for what I do. And we're going to have to replumb it right down after we've installed the new radiator. And there's going to be a little bit of work. So let's go set up the camera outside and get to work. Okay, so what looks like a good location? I think right around here somewhere. If I need to replace the hoses and put some longer ones, that's fine. But I think if I look at it from the front, I think that's going to get some good cooling. It's right at the front. I got a couple of nice places to secure it. So let's do that, and then we can move on to installing the radiator. Okay, so that's in place. Now I'm going to try and apply these little foam protectors. They were there on the radiator. I'm going to try and stick them back on to where they're touching so that they don't chafe through the grill. You know, Vice Grip Garage, Derek would probably be very proud of this install. I got 6 tie wraps holding this in. It's not going anywhere. And like I said earlier, in reality, I don't think Suzy has a whole bunch more years in her. But this is actually going to be better than it was because it's really secure. I can't move it. All I need to do now is I need to plumb the two lines. So I got this one down below. It's got to go down to that line right there, down below there. And then I've got the other line going to this top barb. I might have to trim them up, but I'm going to do that after I install the radiator, and that's going to happen right now. And in goes a new coolerator. I don't know, why am I trying to copy somebody else's stuff? I am who I am. It's a radiator. And it's, like I say, it's much lighter. If you guys remember the struggle I had a couple days ago trying to pull this out, not no more. This thing weighs like probably a quarter of the old one. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess we will know shortly. Well, one thing's for sure, she fits like a glove, so that's good. Let's make sure that these brackets go back where they're supposed to. And then we'll know for sure. Oh yeah, look at that, boys. Look at that. And I can probably even route this. There's a little gap right there, and it won't pinch it. Yeah, for a more gooder install. I like it. Zippity doo-dah here. Now we're going to remove some caps and apparently drop them on the ground and start plumbing it in. So we've got our overflow here for the reservoir that fits just as it's supposed to. And finally for the heat shroud. Sorry guys, I know you guys can't see a whole bunch of what I'm doing in here because it's just, it's dark, it's dingy, it's outside. So what I'm going to do after I'm done, I'm going to do a little shot of what it looks like so that you know what to expect if you ever have to do this job, because this would be a very similar job to even just a regular van, even if it doesn't have to be a motorhome, because that's what these are based off of. The chassis are, you know, cube vans from back in the day. So and why am I having a hard time with this? Oh, that's because it's stuck down there. That's why. Less talk and more work. Apparently I can't do two things at once. I hear that a lot though. It's not new to me. Alright, quick check. We're going to rotate the fan. Make sure it's not touching the shroud. And we're clear. That's good. I always found it funny now that there's only two attachment points, but that's just how it is. There's nothing down below there. It just sits in a little channel. Finally, we're going to put a radiator cap after we fill it. Now, I should have purchased a new radiator cap, but I thought it was going to come with a new one. But again, you kind of get what you pay for. So I'm just going to put this to the side so I know where it is. And now we can start putting in some coolant. Not new coolant, I was going to say new coolant, but we're just going to filter out the stuff that came in. Because I just did that like, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers ago. So I'm just going to use a rag here because I don't have any actual filters. It's a clean rag. And we're just going to hope to catch the bigger stuff. Because like I was saying, it's clean. I did this maybe a couple thousand kilometers ago, honestly. I think it's probably about 1,500 kilometers to be quite honest with you. Oh, we're almost there. A little bit more here. That just about does it here. So we're going to fire her up and get her up and warm, and at the same time that's going to warm up the transmission because we're going to have to top that up as well. I should go get some of that while it's warming up. Oh, she's already going down. Alright, she fired right up. That's good. Now, did she take any of the coolant? Yes. That's even better. Now we're just going to wait for the thermostat to open. And then we should be good to add some into the reservoir once the cap is on. It's actually kind of interesting because the way this works is it says full cold here, which is above the radiator. So if you were to go check for fluid, you'd end up with a mess. So you have to actually fill it up here once the system's all bled. It's kind of, it's interesting. Different from what I'm used to. Alright, while she's warming up, we may as well do a leak check. Oh, look at that flow, that's nice. You can actually see the air coming out, that's kind of neat. Got no leaks here. Anything down below. Looks nice there. All good over here. That's all good. Alright, so let's start topping her off. Oh, we got a bit of a leak. Better go inspect that. Alright, looks like I found it, guys. It took me a while. I was underneath it. I double clamped the lower rad hose because that's where I thought it was leaking until I started looking at the top, because it's not leaking statically, which is a good sign. It was only leaking when the engine was running, and it's actually this hose right here. And you can tell I kind of pinched it. I should have moved the clamp somewhere different, which I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to just loosen off the shroud for the fan here. I'm actually going to, I think I have enough hose. Maybe not, I have to check. But if I have enough hose, I'm just going to cut the tip off, get a nice fresh piece of hose onto the barb there, and we should be alright. Okay, so I've got it double clamped. I've got the clamps on this side so I can access them with my screwdriver if I ever needed to tighten them up again. I've dried up, oh geez, sorry. Dried up the spigot there so that when we refire it, we'll check to see if it leaks. But I got a good feeling about this one. Guys, if I had to complain about the radiator right off the hop, first of all, we're going to move that rag out of the way because I don't want that to get sucked in. I don't like the way all of these fittings are set up on the rad hoses. I don't find them very good as compared to the old one. Especially this one. This one here doesn't have like the little ridge that would hold the hose from sliding off. It is only the heater core, but you know, the other one had a nice ridge and it never leaked. So let's fire it up again, continue filling it. Alright, so we're full now. We're just waiting for the last few air bubbles to come out, and then we're just going to put the cap on, top up the reservoir, let it run for a little bit, and check for leaks again. So back inside, we've got the engine up to temperature, and my oil pressure gauge has gone down again. Every time I go down a rough road, it seems to disconnect itself, so I probably have to pull the dash, remake that connection. I'm not too worried about it, clearly, because the engine would have seized up by now if it didn't have any oil pressure. I got the fan on hot. I got it's blowing some nice hot air, making sure that the heater core is also getting bled. Got no leaks, looks pretty good. Nothing's dripping anywhere. She's looking nice. Sounds good again. But one thing I've noticed is I think my fan belt for the alternator is a little bit loose, because if I rev it up, it squeaks, and actually right there I can actually see it flopping away. So I'm going to make that little adjustment, and then we need to check transmission oil. Right, so I've tightened up the fan belt. It was in fact pretty loose. Should be better now. And we're just going to top off the transmission oil, because we are down about a quart and a half. Just going to cycle through the gears. Let's give it a check. So I've had the engine running for about half an hour now, and we're still a little bit low on the dipstick. I might actually have to take her out around the block to make sure that everything's good, because it says full hot. I'm not sure exactly how hot that needs to be, but I know for sure we've lost a bit. I only put about 1/4 of a quart there. Let's give her a little bit more. Alright, so we're just going to take a quick spin around the block. We're going to bring it back to the yard, make sure that the transmission is all topped up. It'll be nice and hot by then. Suzy's been idling for at least an hour, and the temperature is spot on. Actually, if anything, it's lower by about 25 degrees from what I can tell on this gauge. It's not super accurate, than it was before. My camera person, which is sitting in the passenger seat right now, tells me that even the footwell down by the doghouse here is even cooler. So that's always a good sign. So clearly the radiator's working. I got no leaks. I'm extremely happy. She's going through all the gears, so I know I have enough fluid to get me moving, but it's important that I make sure that we've got the exact amount once we get back home. Alright guys, and that is going to be the end of the video for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Suzy's got new parts again. So again, if you did enjoy, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Oh, and before we go, today's tip of the day is going to be do your homework prior. So what I mean by that is, for example, I actually thought that doing a recore on that radiator was going to be a lot less expensive than purchasing a new one. And unfortunately, in this case, purchasing a new one was the way to go. We're going to find out how good that new radiator is for durability wise in the years to come. However, for right now, she's working awesome. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.